Alright, so in all seriousness, you know what I've realized? We give historians way too much power in this country. Historians, yeah, no, hear me out. So these nerds live in basements and libraries for years studying one individual, and they discover something like really minute, non-important, and they interrupt my news cycle, my TV schedule for like a week at a time, right? So like they're studying like, oh, we found President Washington in July of 1783 marked his diary with a down swoosh on the Y of Tuesday instead of his typical up swoosh. What does this say? I don't care, right? You're interrupting my ability to go to sleep to the masters. I don't care about that, right? Okay, like, here's my thing. I read recently, it's true, I do read from time to time, that George Washington knew he was going to be studied from as early as the French and Indian War. Imagine having that level of foresight and intelligence to know that you're going to be studied and not have a little fun with people, right? If I was George Washington, I would have put some note, tucked it inside a book somewhere that says, on the 200th anniversary of my death, you will find I've instructed my contemporaries to hide the secret of the Freemasons' treasure in the tomb of Thomas Jefferson. Go thine, and you will find where we have hidden the treasure. Also, pew Thomas Jefferson. Hey everybody, I'm Justin, the Millennial Mixtape, and you are back with the show no one asked for, Best Theme Song Ever. So again, what I do on the show, the premise is every week or month or every other month, thereabouts, whenever it happens, you get what you get. Whenever it happens, I look at a different TV show theme song and I review the theme song based on 4 criteria. If you're new to the show, those criteria are earworm ability, title sequence, intentionality of lyrics, and timeliness of the song, or how does that song fit into the soundscape of what was being played on radio when the show premiered. Now, if you want more information, more details on how I grade these shows, the rubric is right there below the like button. Go ahead and give that a click when you are ready. And with that, we're going to get started with Seinfeld. And before we get started, please be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Of course, you hear it from every other YouTuber. It does help us out quite a bit. Lets the algorithm know that people are tuning in and checking us out. So be sure to do that. And without any further talking from me, before we get to more talking from me, let's go ahead and dive into Seinfeld. Okay, so let's start with the premise of Seinfeld. The show is called The Show About Nothing, which is strongly evidenced by the fact that the first and last things discussed by the characters in both the pilot and final episode is buttons. Beautiful, round, holy. I mean, not to belittle buttons, they are fascinating, but you can see how this is a show about nothing, yeah? Also of note, to defy sitcom conventions, Larry David instituted a policy of no hugging and no learning, meaning that the show must avoid sentimentality and moral lessons. The characters must never learn or grow from their wrongdoings. So basically, we follow these characters for 8 or 9 seasons, and they're the same at the end as they were at the beginning. Cool. It works. Checks out. Contrary to that, though, Jerry Seinfeld has said that the original pitch that they wanted was to show how a comedian gets his material, which again is evidenced by the show starting and ending with a conversation about buttons. Either works. The show is largely episodic, with only continual plots being the coincidental events that unfold in each of the characters' lives. And again, much to the original premise, these events are based on individual experiences of the writers from the show, or real-world events that are then placed into the context of the characters and their interactions. One of probably the most well-known plot lines is where George quits and then comes back and acts like he didn't quit. That's based on Larry David's actual experiences at SNL. He quit one day and then just showed up the next day for work like nothing happened. Okay, and now let's talk history of the theme song. I am so excited to be back in the Wolfpack this week. Yes, that's right, longtime fan of the show. Hi, Mom. We're talking about the one, the only, Jonathan Wolff, the iconic Jonathan Wolff, most notably known for his work on Seinfeld, but he also scored Will and Grace, Who's the Boss, Saved by the Bell, The College Years, and you can check out my video for that here. And here's how it happened. In an interview with Vice, Mr. Wolff stated that he had done some music for comedian and friend George Wallace. Jerry Seinfeld, who was also friends with Wallace, was telling him about the trouble he was having scoring his new show, The Seinfeld Chronicles. George connected him with Jonathan, and bing, bang, boom, history. The challenge was allowing Jerry's voice to be an instrument. Everything needed to be natural, so that's when he decided to use his own voice for accents and pops, which he then sampled and laid down some bass lines underneath it. When he played it for Jerry and Larry, they loved it. But what you may not know is that this theme song was rewritten weekly to match the cadence and rhythm of Jerry Seinfeld's stand-up at the beginning of each episode. So in essence, there are 180 versions of this theme song. Mr. Wolff would spend about 4 hours each week completing a new track to then go out and be viewed by millions of people every week. That is nuts. This is basically the first, and to my knowledge, only modular theme song. Okay, and now let's talk about our first criteria, earworm ability. This theme song, to sum it up in one word, is recognizable. It's unmistakable. Okay, well, that's 2 words. But you know it when you hear it. And it is endlessly placeable. It could appear in a show nearly 30 years later and it would still land.
Really?
Because of that, I'm going to give it a 4 on earworm ability. It might not seem like it's that much of an earworm, but you'll be like, right? You'll be doing that like all day now. So earworm ability, we get a 4. And now our next criteria, title sequence. The title sequence for the show is basically non-existent. It is non-conventional in that sense as well, at least for the shows of that time. But the lack of a title sequence perfectly fits into everything else about this show. Everything about this show is tailored to it being about nothing. So a title that only incorporates about a tight 40-second comedy routine with some mouth pops and bass lines suits it incredibly well. But the idea behind title sequence is that it should give the viewer some sense of what we're about to watch. And does this title sequence do that? No. It does if you're previously acquainted with Seinfeld. Absolutely, you can tell what the show's going to be about. But to a casual observer, I imagine they would have no idea. So for that, I'm giving title sequence a 2.5. All right, and our third criteria, intentionality. It's non-existent. There's nothing. There's some jokes that are maybe loosely related to what the theme of the episodes will be about, but there's no long-running lyrics to the show. I'm sure that there's a song written about Seinfeld somewhere that probably gives you a better idea of what the show's about, and maybe we could use that in future iterations. But for now, using this, there's no intentionality of lyrics. There's no lyrics. It's nothing. So I'm gonna give it a 1. But what does it matter? The show's about nothing. None of this matters. Why are you here? None of this matters. Okay, and our last criteria is timeliness. So Seinfeld originally aired on July 5th, 1989, and the #1 song at the time was Good Thing by Fine Young Cannibals. Or, you know, the other song by that band that had a Kermit and Miss Piggy duet.
She drives me crazy, oh, oh, like no one else, oh, oh.
So the thing I look at here is whether or not the song lines up well with the music of that time, and it very intentionally does not. Wolff stated that he was trying to defy convention, much like Larry David and Jerry Seinfeld. They were trying to defy convention of sitcoms of the time. They're trying to avoid it sounding so 80s, so there's no sexy saxophones or heavy distorted guitar, and that actually aids in the timelessness of the song. It doesn't fit into the time when the show premiered, but it doesn't really fit into any time. So it is, again, a timeless song. So for that, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 4. All right, and so now let's talk final score for Seinfeld. I'm gonna have to go back and listen to more of that Kermit and Miss Piggy thing. That was awful. I'm really sorry that you had to listen to that. Anyway, let's talk final score for Seinfeld. So for earworm ability, we have a 4. For title sequence, we have a 2.5. Intentionality of lyrics, we have a 1. And for timeliness of the song, we have a 4, which is not terrible. When we add all that up and average it out, that gives us a 72% C. Respectable, right? The show about nothing has middle of the road score. And that is, of course, no reflection on Mr. Jonathan Wolff, who, by the way, is very accessible on Instagram and Facebook. His handle is Seinfeld Music Guy. Go give him a follow. He talks music, he talks history, he talks all kinds of fun things, and he will respond to a comment or two. I've had actually pretty good conversation with him before in the past, so he's very available. Go ahead and give him a follow and a like while you're out there. So that will do it for us. That does it for Seinfeld. As I said, I've got a lot of these kind of in the works. I've just got to buckle down and focus. I kind of know what I want my next one to be. I've been working on King of the Hill for a while, so that'll probably be the next one. So be sure and tune back in when that comes out. Share, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I have been Justin, the Millennial Mixtape. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I want to formally apologize for you having to listen to my interpretation of stand-up comedy, but there's some more coming up. So here you go. This is the end of the video. See you guys in the next one. Until I see you, stay safe, stay well. Can we talk about how mean, unnecessarily mean, the local news is? Right, no, I'm serious. I'm serious. Right, with the national news, they know that you could flip one channel up or down and get your news at 6, 9, and 11. But the local news, they got you. You know, there's nowhere else you can go. They got you, right? And so they're mean to your face on the live TV, right? So just as a for instance, about a few days ago, there was an earthquake in my hometown, which should have been the news story. But instead, they interviewed poor Veronica Bagley, who in her double wide trailer, and yes, they made sure to mention she lives in a double wide trailer. There's nothing wrong with that woman living in a double wide trailer. Right? But they mentioned it 3 times in their news article, mentioned the earthquake once. Could you imagine if they took that one step further? Like, we're gonna go now to Carl, who has Veronica Bagley in her double wide trailer, which I'm sure smells like to see how she felt about the earthquake the other day. Carl?